72 hours. That's how long it would take for an Israel-Iran conflict to spiral into World War III. Not months of diplomacy failing, not weeks of military build-up. 72 hours from the first strike to global crisis. And it starts with a decision Israel is considering right now. Israel retaliates against Iran's nuclear program. Iran fires back, not just at Israel, but at American bases across the Middle East. The United States is forced to respond. Russia and China issue warnings. Oil prices explode. NATO is put on alert. And suddenly, 3 nuclear powers are on a collision course. This isn't fear-mongering. This is a war game simulation based on actual Pentagon escalation models and historical crisis analysis. Today, we're breaking down the 72-hour timeline, hour by hour, showing exactly how a regional conflict becomes a global catastrophe. Because understanding how World War III could start is the first step to preventing it. Welcome to Battlefield Insights, where we analyze global conflict simulations. This is a war game simulation, not a prediction of what will happen, but an analysis of what could happen based on RAND Corporation escalation models, CSIS crisis simulations, and historical precedent from past great power conflicts. We're examining the mechanics of escalation, not advocating for war. We'll walk through 6 critical phases over 72 hours. The Israeli strike, Iranian retaliation, American intervention, great power response, economic collapse, and the point of no return. Hit subscribe, because this is the nightmare scenario keeping strategists awake at night. Hour 0. After months of escalating tensions, Israel makes the decision. A preemptive strike on Iran's nuclear facilities. Not a limited raid, a comprehensive air campaign. F-35 stealth fighters, bunker buster bombs, the full arsenal. Targets: Fordow buried under a mountain, Natanz enrichment plant, Isfahan conversion facility. The goal: set Iran's nuclear program back a decade. This isn't speculation. Israel's Air Force has trained for exactly this mission for 20 years. The strikes are successful. Facilities severely damaged. Centrifuges destroyed. But Iran's nuclear program isn't the only thing that's been hit. Iran's pride, its deterrence, its regional power, all shattered in one night. And for the Iranian regime, this is an existential humiliation that demands response. Within hours, Iran's supreme leader convenes the Supreme National Security Council. The question isn't if to retaliate, it's how. And here's where the escalation begins. Because Iran doesn't just target Israel, they target the enabler, American bases across the Middle East. Udeid in Qatar, Dhafra in UAE, naval support activity Bahrain. Suddenly, American troops are in the crosshairs. Hour 12. Iran launches the largest missile barrage in its history. Not 300 like in April 2024. Over 1,000 ballistic and cruise missiles. The targets: Israeli cities and American military installations. This is the trigger, because the moment American service members die, the United States has no choice but to respond. The war just went from regional to global.
The Iranian missile barrage hits American bases. Udeid Air Base in Qatar takes multiple impacts. Casualties: 47 American service members killed, over 200 wounded. This is the trigger. Article 51 of the UN Charter, the inherent right of self-defense. The president has no political choice. Congress doesn't even need to authorize it. America is at war. Hour 24. The United States responds with overwhelming force. Not a limited strike, total degradation of Iran's military capability. B-2 stealth bombers, Tomahawk cruise missiles from destroyers and submarines, F-22 and F-35 fighter strikes. The targets: every Iranian missile site, every naval base, every IRGC command center, every air defense battery. The goal: eliminate Iran's ability to wage war. But Iran has one card left to play: the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway through which 20% of the world's oil passes. Iranian Revolutionary Guard fast boats swarm oil tankers. Anti-ship mines are deployed. A Saudi tanker is hit and explodes. And just like that, the global economy is in free fall. Oil prices spike from $80 to $250 per barrel in 48 hours. Stock markets crash worldwide. Dow Jones down 30%. European markets in chaos. Asian markets suspended. Gas prices in America hit $10 per gallon. The economic shockwave is immediate and devastating. And this is when the great powers start making phone calls. The economic shockwave is immediate and devastating. And this is when the great powers start making phone calls.
Hour 36. The phone call President Biden feared. Vladimir Putin warns that continued U.S. military action in the Middle East threatens regional stability and could have consequences. Translation. Russia is considering direct support for Iran. And Russia deploys S-400 air defense systems to Armenia, right on Iran's northern border. Officially defensive. Actually a shield for Iran. But the real danger is in the Pacific. China sees America bogged down in the Middle East. Carriers in the Persian Gulf, bombers committed to Iran, munitions being expended rapidly. And Xi Jinping sees an opportunity. Chinese military exercises around Taiwan suddenly intensify. Not a drill. An amphibious assault rehearsal. This is the nightmare scenario we covered in a previous video. America fighting on multiple fronts. The Pentagon faces an impossible choice: surge everything to the Middle East and risk China moving on Taiwan, or split forces and be weak in both theaters. They choose to split. And suddenly, American military dominance doesn't look so dominant anymore. Hour 48. NATO convenes an emergency session in Brussels, and the cracks appear. Turkey, a NATO member, refuses to support American action, calling it illegal aggression. Germany hesitates, fearing Russian gas cutoffs. France calls for immediate ceasefire. The alliance that won the Cold War is fracturing in real time. The United States is isolated, overstretched, and facing enemies on 3 fronts. And the 72-hour clock is still ticking.
Hour 54. While missiles fly and troops mobilize, the real weapon of mass destruction is economic. Global markets have lost $15 trillion in value in just 2 days. American retirement accounts decimated. European banks requiring emergency bailouts. Asian economies in free fall. This is the fastest economic collapse in history. In America, gas hits $12 per gallon. Grocery stores see panic buying. Shelves empty in hours. Airlines cancel flights. Factories shut down without affordable fuel. Inflation spikes to levels not seen since the 1970s. And the Federal Reserve is powerless. You can't print your way out of an oil shortage. Then China makes its move. Not military, economic. Beijing announces special trade measures, cutting rare earth element exports to the United States. These materials are critical for everything from smartphones to fighter jets to missiles, and China controls 80% of global supply. America's tech sector and defense industry face immediate crisis. Hour 60. The president addresses the nation for the second time in 3 days. The message: prepare for sacrifice. Rationing is being considered. Strategic petroleum reserves are being released. But it's not enough. The global economy is in cardiac arrest. And the question everyone is asking: is stopping Iran's nuclear program worth this?
Hour 66. The United Nations Security Council convenes. Russia and China demand immediate ceasefire and withdrawal of U.S. forces. The United States refuses, citing self-defense and the need to eliminate Iran's nuclear threat. The meeting devolves into shouting, no resolution is possible. The UN, like the League of Nations before it, is powerless to stop great power conflict. On the streets, millions march worldwide. Stop World War III trends across every social media platform. But wars have their own momentum. The Pentagon is already planning the next phase. Ground forces to secure Iranian nuclear sites permanently. Russia responds by moving 50,000 troops to the Armenian border with Iran, calling it a peacekeeping deployment. It's a clear threat. Hour 70. And then the unthinkable. Russia elevates its nuclear alert status, not to launch ready, but to heightened readiness. The United States responds by moving to DEFCON 3. For the first time since the Cuban Missile Crisis, nuclear powers are actively preparing for the possibility of atomic war. This is no longer just about Iran. This is about everything. Meanwhile, in the Pacific, Chinese submarines are detected operating near Guam, home to American strategic bombers and a critical military hub. US attack submarines shadow them. One miscalculation, one aggressive maneuver, one commander making the wrong call. And the shooting starts in the Pacific too. We've reached hour 72. The point of no return. 72 hours. That's how long it takes to go from regional conflict to global catastrophe. But here's what this simulation reveals. At every phase, there's a choice. Israel could choose limited strikes. Iran could choose to absorb the hit. The US could choose sanctions. Russia and China could choose neutrality. History shows both outcomes are possible. In 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis brought us to the brink, and leaders chose peace. In 1914, the assassination of an archduke triggered World War I, and leaders chose war. The mechanics are the same. The difference is human decision-making. 72 hours to World War III, or 72 hours to choose a different path. The clock is ticking, but it hasn't run out yet. Understanding how wars escalate is the first step to preventing them. For more strategic analysis of the crises shaping our world, subscribe to Battlefield Insights. Next video, the economic weapon, why Iran's failed attack still terrifies the Pentagon. See you then.